They say every redemption story needs a villain to step on, and lucky may drew the short straw. I was James Walker, the rich, loyal side character who existed solely to suffer for the heroine's glow-up. I gave her everything, my time, my money, my self-respect. And in the end, I died for her, literally, like some tragic accessory. But life or maybe fate decided to throw me a lifeline, because I woke up one day in the middle of it all. I opened my eyes to the smug, disgusted look on Emily Carter's face, her tone full of contempt as she barked, "I won't accept your charity." At that moment, something inside me snapped. I didn't argue, didn't plead. I just grabbed the car keys and the bank card I had offered her, waved lazily, and said, "Cool. Bye, Miss Independent." Her stunned silence was priceless. But of course, drama never ends with one scene. She chased me down after class, threw the same stuff back at my feet, and repeated, "I said, I won't accept charity from you." Then she looked me dead in the eye and added coldly, "And don't waste your time. I'll never like you." Standing at the bottom of the stairs, I stared up at her, genuinely baffled. Emily was dirt poor. She could barely afford to eat, ran over 12 miles a day to take care of her sick mother, and yet she turned down help like it was poison. I didn't get it. Just like I never understood why I, who'd met countless girls smarter, kinder, prettier, somehow ended up chasing after this one girl like a fool, the infamous bootlicker of No. 3 high school. But before those thoughts could spiral, something yanked them back, like an invisible hand slapping my brain into autopilot. Just like a good little side character, I lowered my head, picked the stuff back up, and forced a humble smile as I held it out to her. "Emily, it's not charity. I just feel bad for you," I said softly. Her expression twisted like I'd spit on her. "Your pity makes me sick," she snapped. Then she shoved me. Hard. I wasn't ready. I stumbled, missed a step, and tumbled down the stairs. As pain shot through me, something else broke loose. Not just a bone, something in my mind. Suddenly, flashes hit me like a truck. Not memories. No, they were plot point scenes from a story. And not just any story. I was the disposable male supporting role in a campus redemption novel. Emily wasn't mine to begin with. Her true love was her childhood friend, Ryan Kim. Half a year from now, Emily would lose her mother, fail the college entrance exam, and then under pressure date me out of convenience. My family would sponsor her overseas education, and I'd think I was special. But to her, I was just a stain she couldn't wash off. During the 5 years we were together, she barely looked me in the eye. Then, after returning to the country, she teamed up with our company's board and tried to steal my family's assets. In the end, she left with Ryan without even glancing back as I bled out on the floor, stabbed in the back, literally. The last image was her walking away on his arm, indifferent and ice-cold. That same look she had just now, at 18. I looked up at her for a full 30 seconds. She flinched, only slightly, before the class bell rang. She paused, turned, and sneered, "Go ahead and keep playing dead if you want to be late. But trying to guilt-trip me? Pathetic." Something shifted in me. The fog cleared, and I saw everything. "Wait," I rasped. She stopped but didn't turn. "What now?" "I barely touched you." "Are you seriously gonna blackmail me?" she scoffed. I got up, walked past her, and without a word, yanked the keys and card straight out of her uniform pocket. "Bye, silly fairy," I said as I walked away. Bet she didn't see that one coming. I'd awakened. I wasn't playing the bootlicker anymore. After school, my family's car pulled up. I got in, but the driver, Mr. Johnson, didn't leave. I looked at him. "What are you waiting for?" He smiled and waved at someone outside. "Miss Carter, heading home?" Through the tinted window, I saw Emily glance over like nothing happened, like she expected me to beg again. "Mr. Johnson," I said, "are you my family's driver or hers?" His smile froze. "Yours, of course, young master. I narrowed my eyes. There is no Miss Carter in my family. Call her that again, I'll get a new driver. Yes, sir. Got it, he mumbled, though he still sneaked one last look at her. It was always the same. Everyone around me thought Emily was some misunderstood angel, even when she was spitting venom. I watched her unlock her cheap bicycle, and my mind flashed to the original plot: how I forced the keys and card on her, how she refused with drama, only to use the money later anyway to pay her mom's medical bills. Of course, she still played the victim. But now, without my card, without my help, how was she going to make it to the hospital 12 miles away? How was she going to pay for surgery? That afternoon, I was home, eating watermelon and finishing up homework when Dad called. We're visiting Uncle Lee at the hospital. Why? Which one? I'll come now, I said quickly. Something was nagging at me. I had a bad feeling. We pulled up to the hospital, and just as I passed the payment area, I heard a familiar voice. Dar. Read, please. Perform the surgery. I swear I'll get the money. Emily, I can't. The hospital has rules. You still owe previous bills. If you can't pay in a few days, we'll have to discharge your mom, the doctor said helplessly. Emily crumbled right there on the floor, completely defeated. Gone was the proud, untouchable girl from this morning. In her place was someone broken. But still, why was she so damn arrogant in front of me? Was it my role? Was I written to love her blindly, no matter what? I walked past her to the elevator, not saying a word. She suddenly muttered, "James Walker, you win." I froze. What? I turned back. Her eyes were red, her tone bitter. You wanted to see me desperate, didn't you? Begging for help. I stared at her and deadpanned, "Are you insane?" She scoffed, sure I was just being coy. "Just give me the card," she said coldly. "Isn't that why you came? Don't pretend this is a coincidence. I know who you really are." "Big sister, get your facts straight," I said, rubbing my temples. "You think I'm here to play games? My parents donate millions to charities. Never seen a single person act this entitled. You've got a sad life, yeah. But what's that got to do with me?" Her jaw clenched. "You think you can humiliate me just because you're rich?" "No," I said, "I think I can humiliate you because you're ungrateful." Just then, the elevator dinged. Before I could step in, someone shoved me hard from behind. I fell face first onto the floor. James Walker. "Stop bullying her," a voice shouted. I looked up, furious, and there he was, Ryan Kim. Tall, dark-haired, fake righteous. The original male lead. "Seriously?" I said. "You're jumping people now." He grabbed my collar, ready to swing. I kicked him square in the chest, sending him staggering. Emily ran up to him like I was the aggressor. "What kind of look is that?" she snapped. "Is Ryan wrong?" "I'm warning you," Ryan growled, "just because Emily turned you down, doesn't mean you can buy her with money." "Oh, I'm about to slap you with a size 12 shoe," I muttered. Is everyone in this story delusional? Do you expect me to thank you now? Emily sneered. "No," I said calmly. I took out my phone, dialed 911, and said, "Let the cops deal with this stupidity." "You're calling the police?" Ryan gasped like I just summoned Satan. "Emily will hate you forever." "Perfect," I said, hitting dial. "She already does. Might as well make it official." As we waited 20 minutes for the cops, Ryan tried to negotiate like a bad con man. Fine, you're mad. I get it. Just give me the money, I'll convince her to forgive you. Cancel the call. Let's move on. What do I look like to you? An ATM with no brain? I scoffed. You two started this. You can explain yourselves to the police. Ryan sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. Emily's life will be ruined. Is that what you want? You two are ruining yourselves, I said. All I did was show up at the wrong time. My bad. The cops arrived. I showed them the security footage. No negotiation. No settlement. They took them both to the station for assault and fined them for my medical costs. Emily shot daggers at me with her eyes like I just committed a crime. I shrugged. Cry harder. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how I stopped being the clown in someone else's tragic rom-com. After that glorious little police station detour, word spread fast Emily Carter, our high and mighty campus goddess, had actually gotten into trouble, and it was all thanks to me, the guy she used to treat like gum on her shoe. Everyone had an opinion, of course. Some still thought I'd gone too far, but most. They finally started seeing the cracks in her halo. Meanwhile, I went to check on Uncle Lee at the hospital, and wouldn't you know it, Sophia Lee was there too, leaning against the door frame like she owned the place, which, knowing her, she practically did. After some awkward small talk, I pulled her aside and said bluntly, "Cancel Emily Carter's funding." Her smirk froze. "Wait, what? You two broke up?" I didn't bother explaining that we were never even together. She didn't know that I'd been the one secretly funding Emily's life under Sophia's name for almost a year. $5,000 a month, plus tuition waivers and daily living expenses all funneled through the Lees so Emily wouldn't connect the dots. In the beginning, she'd been so sweet in her thank you letters, always calling her mysterious sponsor, Brother Lee, gushing about how warm and gentle he was. Of course, I read every single letter and responded like a sap, and before I knew it, I was addicted not to her, but to the idea of her. The girl in those letters wasn't the real Emily Carter. That girl was soft, thoughtful, full of gratitude. But in reality, she was sharp-tongued, self-righteous, and blind to her own hypocrisy. I used to think I was in love with her. Now I realized I'd been in love with a version of her that never existed. Sophia raised an eyebrow when I didn't elaborate and said, "Fine by me. I never liked her anyway. But don't go crawling back when she shows up crying." She scrolled through her phone, then looked up with a grin and said, "Here, some required reading." She forwarded me a bunch of social media threads: how to spot a gold digger, 10 traits of green tea women, why rich guys need to marry smart. I smirked. Better late than never. On the ride home, I was unusually quiet. My dad noticed. "You okay?" he asked, not looking up from his phone. "Just thinking," I said. "What if our family suddenly went bankrupt?" He laughed. "That's oddly specific. Are you low on cash? I just transferred you 50 grand last week." He waved his hand and sent another 50 over like it was spare change. "That's not it," I said, "but I took the money anyway. I just had a nightmare. Promise me something that store critical files on the company servers. And no shady partnerships, ever." He glanced over, now mildly concerned. "You're scaring me, kid. But sure. I promise." I finally smiled again. Then I noticed something on his phone. "What's that?" He flipped the screen toward me. "Dar. Reed's fundraiser. Some cancer patient needs a donation." I was thinking of pitching in. My heart dropped. The name on the screen was familiar, too familiar. That patient? Emily's mother. In the original plot, Dr. Reed had started a campaign to raise money for her surgery. My parents had donated 200 grand, but the platform delayed the transfer, and by the time the funds arrived, it was too late. Her mother died, and Emily, in her grief, blamed my family and Dr. Reed for everything. She went full villain mode, framed us, sued us, ruined my dad's company. In the end, we lost everything. Even Dr. Reed lost both his hands in an attack and never operated again. I slapped my dad's phone down. "Don't donate." He blinked. "What?" "She won't survive the surgery, and the money will be wasted. Let's help someone else." Dad frowned, but nodded. "You're acting weird lately. Trust me, I said. It's for the best. School was chaos the next few days. The air around Emily shifted. People could feel something had changed. She and her clique weren't as loud anymore, but during one break, they staged a scene anyway. Chloe Brooks and her crew swarmed her. Emily, did you and James get into a fight? Their voices weren't even hushed. They wanted me to hear. Emily glanced sideways, smirked faintly, and said nothing. Her friends caught on fast. A fight? James isn't brave enough for that. He's probably crying in a corner somewhere, waiting for Emily to talk to him. Another one chimed in, he's been cold lately. I bet he'll come crawling back in a day or two. The peanut gallery laughed, and Emily soaked it up, her ego getting a much-needed massage. Chloe clapped her hands and said, hey, it's my birthday. Let's hit up karaoke tonight. Emily didn't hesitate. Let's go. Chloe said she'd ask her mom for cash, but Emily waved it off. It's your birthday. I'll pay. Everyone started fawning over her like she was some benevolent queen. Emily, you're the best. Without you, we'd be nothing. Seriously, you're way too good for James. He doesn't deserve you. It was a whole performance. And Emily, predictably, was loving every second of it. What they didn't know was that her bank account was already empty. She hadn't received the monthly deposit. After school, I waited for my ride outside. I watched as Emily and her group giggled their way to the ATM. 5 minutes later, they came out, all fake smiles gone. Why is there no money in your card, Emily? Chloe asked, trying to stay casual. Didn't Brother Lee deposit your monthly funds? Emily's expression tightened. He wouldn't just cut me off. She pulled out her phone and tried calling. Blocked. The humiliation was instant. Her friends picked up on it immediately. Wait, he blocked you. Is he ghosting you now? Did you piss him off? What about the private room I booked for karaoke? Emily stood there like she'd been slapped. She turned, slowly, and looked at me. I felt it before I saw it. Something bad was coming. She marched up and said sweetly, hey, James, can you return that $3,000 I gave you for medical bills? I blinked. Why would I do that? Because that money wasn't a gift. It was compensation. Separate from anything you gave me before, she said, voice trembling but firm. You owe me. I laughed out loud. That money was for the hospital fees after you and your knight in shining armor attacked me. The police ruled it as assault. You don't get refunds on legal penalties. Her face flushed red with rage. Fine. I'll pay you back for that later. Just give me the $3,000 for now. I stared at her like she'd grown 2 heads. No, you're doing this on purpose, aren't you? She snapped. Just because I wouldn't date you, you're making my life hell. She took a deep breath, as if sacrificing her soul. Okay, fine. I accept your charity. Is that what you wanted to hear? She spread her arms dramatically. Happy now? Just give me the money. I held back a laugh. You've got time for karaoke but can't cover your mom's medical bills. Priorities, Emily. Fix them. Are you threatening me? She asked, eyes flashing. Mr. Johnson's car pulled up. I opened the door, but she blocked it. You don't have to pay for my mom. Dar. Reed is helping me fundraise. Don't act like I owe you anything, she snapped. So tell me, are you giving me the money or not? I pulled her hand off the door and shoved her aside. As the car started rolling, I leaned out the window and said, tell Dar. Reed to check your brain while he's at it. Later that evening, Ryan Kim gave her a crumpled wad of cash. This is all I've got. My allowance for next month, he said, handing her $1,000 like he was donating a kidney. Emily smiled through her fake tears. I'll pay you back, Ryan. I swear. He nodded, then hesitated. Hey, what school are you applying to? Tsinghua, obviously, she said without pause. Her grades were top 5 every semester. I want to go there too, Ryan said. But I'm not sure I'll make it. There's only one guaranteed recommendation slot left. She didn't need him to finish. I knew that look on her face. She was already plotting. Don't worry, she said, clutching his arm. I'll talk to James. I'm sure I can convince him to give it up. I didn't hear that part until later. In the original story, I did give up the slot for her. But now, I'd already submitted my application. That next afternoon, I visited the Lee estate and dug through Sophia's study. I found the letters, every last one. All those cringy love notes Emily had sent to Brother Lee. Letters where she said she'd never met someone as kind, gentle, and warm. Sophia stood behind me, watching me tear them up, her smirk unreadable. I didn't care. I was done pretending. As we walked downstairs, we heard a voice from the living room. Mr. Lee, please don't cut off my support. I'm so close to graduation. I'll make you proud. We turned the corner, and there she was, Emily Carter, her hands clasped like she was praying. When she saw Sophia and me, her face went pale. Sophia raised an eyebrow. You think we care? We could sponsor 100 kids like you if we wanted. Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. She pointed at Sophia and screamed, you rich people think you can control everyone. I want to talk to Brother Lee's the only one who understands me. Sophia gave her a smug smile. Sweetheart, I am Brother Lee. That's when Emily cracked. Her brain couldn't compute it. The warm, kind boy she'd imagined turned out to be a girl she hated. Her face turned red, her body shook, and when she saw me, she lost it. James. You did this. You tricked me. She grabbed a glass and hurled it. I ducked just in time. Security dragged her out as she kicked and screamed. You set me up. You bastard. Just because I didn't love you, you want to ruin me. You should die. I watched her, no anger left, only pity. She looked around at the stunned faces of everyone in the room, faces that no longer saw her as the misunderstood heroine. In that moment, she wasn't the main character anymore. She was just a girl who bet everything on a fantasy and lost. After the whole, you tricked me, you should die, meltdown at the Lee family mansion, Emily Carter was officially done in my book. Not that she'd ever really been in it to begin with, but now the delusion was over, not just hers, but mine too. I went home that night feeling weirdly light. Not happy, not sad, just done. Like I'd finally dropped a backpack I didn't realize I'd been carrying since freshman year. I thought that was it, that I could finally have some peace. But of course, peace is a luxury you don't get when you've just pulled the plug on a delusional campus drama queen with a revenge arc hanging over her head. The next day, as I strolled past the bulletin board, I noticed something funny. Ryan Kim and his bros were huddled nearby, trying to act casual. Ryan was talking big, as usual, flexing about how he'd be heading to Tsinghua soon. You guys can all visit me in Beijing, he said smugly, tossing his hair like he was on some teen drama. One of his buddies whistled. Damn, you got in. Ryan chuckled like it was already a done deal. Not yet, but Emily's handling it. You know James Walker, he worships her. She'll talk him into giving me the spot. Another guy snorted. James? That selfish rich kid. You sure? Please, Ryan said confidently. James would lick the dirt off her shoes if she asked. I was standing behind the wall near the water fountain, listening to every word like I was watching my own character get roasted on a podcast. I didn't even feel mad. I just felt amused. These idiots still thought I was the same guy who'd beg for scraps of affection. I washed my hands, dried them, and walked off without saying a word. I wanted to see their faces when reality hit. And oh, did it hit. A few days later, the recommendation slot results were officially posted. There, in bold gold font, were the words, James Walker. Ryan's face dropped like he'd just swallowed battery acid. He stood there frozen, blinking like the world had betrayed him. Emily came over right on cue, and Ryan immediately turned on her like a dog off-leash. "Why is his name up there?" he demanded. "Didn't you say you'd handle it?" Emily, still high on delusions of being the moral center of this entire story, flipped the script. "Why should I help you? Can't you fight for anything on your own? Only losers ask someone else to do their dirty work." Boom. Just like that, she burned the bridge. Ryan's jaw dropped. "Excuse me? Who are you calling a loser?" "If the shoe fits," Emily snapped. "You've been taking money from me, haven't you?" He exploded. "You gold-digging hypocrite. You were happy to take my money when you needed it, but now that I need something, suddenly I'm the bad guy." Everyone around the board turned to stare. This wasn't just gossip now, this was a live show. Emily crossed her arms, radiating superiority. "You're just mad I didn't beg James hard enough to save your spot." "Sorry, I don't owe you anything." Ryan's voice cracked. "You're pathetic. You took money from James too, didn't you? You treated him like trash, but now you're crawling back. I bet you planned this, playing both sides. You think I wanted this?" Emily shouted. "You think I enjoyed being humiliated? You both used me. I wasn't even in the argument, but they were dragging me into it like I was the season finale twist." Ryan got personal fast. "At least my parents are alive. You drove your dad to his grave and now you're doing the same to your mom. What kind of daughter are you?" Even I winced at that one. Emily turned ghost pale. "Say that again," she whispered. Ryan sneered. "Everyone knows. You guilt-tripped people into supporting you, but when they stop, you turn on them like a psycho. You think James is better than you? At least he has money and a future. What do you have besides that pretty boy face and a scholarship you didn't earn?" That set Ryan off. "You're calling me fake? You've been manipulating guys with your pity act for years. James finally woke up, and now you're scrambling. Guess you're not used to losing, huh?" The crowd was eating it up. I stood off to the side, watching, sipping a soda I just bought from the vending machine. Honestly, I didn't even need to say anything, they were destroying each other. One student whispered, "Wait, James was the one supporting her." Another added, "She treated him like garbage for years. That's messed up." A third chimed in, "Can you blame him for finally snapping?" The general vibe shifted. Suddenly, Emily and Ryan weren't the tragic leads of a teen drama, they were just a pair of toxic messes. The spotlight moved, and I wasn't the villain anymore. I was the guy who got away. Emily noticed the change in energy and tried to pivot. She looked over and saw me. Her eyes widened, her expression softening into that fake, fragile act she always used when things went wrong. "James," she called out gently, like nothing had happened. I turned and walked the other way. But of course, she followed. "Wait. I was wrong, okay? I messed up. But I know now. I know you're the only one who ever cared about me. I didn't even stop walking. I accept the apology. Keep the rest. Don't be like this," she begged. "Let's start over. We can fix things together." I stopped and turned around. "Emily, I'll say it one more time. Get lost. As far away as possible. Don't come near me again." She flinched like I'd slapped her. I kept walking. But I knew the story wasn't over. Even if she and Ryan were finished, and even if I'd broken free from the role the script had forced on me, the gears of fate were still turning. I'd dodged a bullet, but Emily's next move was something no one could predict, not even her. Her mom's condition worsened. No money. No surgery. Desperation does things to people. The day of the college entrance exam, Emily showed up looking hollow. Red eyes, messy hair, like she hadn't slept in days. She sat through the entire test in a fog, just going through the motions. When results came in, it was no surprise she didn't even make the minimum cut. Meanwhile, I got my Tsinghua admission letter with a full ride. Thanks to that recommendation I didn't give up. Victory felt weird. Not triumphant, just inevitable. Like I'd corrected the course of a badly written script. But just when I thought I could exhale, I remembered something: the next event. In the original story, Dr. Reed was attacked. I pulled out my phone and called my dad. "Hey, remember Dr. Reed? Don't let him go to the hospital today." My dad sounded distracted. "Too late. I'm here now. Something crazy just happened. Dr. Reed got attacked." My heart sank. "What do you mean?" "Some woman sliced up his hands," he said, voice shaking. "She was screaming something about surgery money and broken promises. It was chaos. The police dragged her away, but she kept shouting, 'Where's the money? You said you'd help.'" I closed my eyes. It was happening. Just like before. Even without my involvement, the dominoes were falling. Emily had snapped. She'd destroyed the one person who genuinely tried to help. Dr. Reed's career was over. The hands that once held lives were now ruined. And Emily? She was arrested on the spot. The prosecution came swiftly. Without the Walker family backing her, she had no legal team, no influence, no bargaining chip. She was sentenced to 10 years for assault with a deadly weapon. On the day she was taken away, my dad and I were at the courthouse, more out of curiosity than anything else. Through the sea of reporters and security, I saw her. Pale, thinner, eyes dull but still searching. And when she found me, she mouthed, "Save me." I just stared. And for the first time in years, I felt absolutely nothing. No anger. No pity. Just peace. That was when I realized she was never the main character. Not in this story. Not in mine. And I was done pretending otherwise. You'd think that after watching Emily Carter get sentenced, after hearing the clang of the courtroom door and watching her vanish into the system, I'd feel triumphant, maybe even vindicated, but honestly, it just felt quiet, like the static finally cut off after years of background noise, and I was standing there in the silence realizing how much space she'd taken up in my life, in my head, in every damn decision I made since junior year, and now that she was gone, really gone, I wasn't sure what to do with all that empty room, but I knew one thing: I wasn't filling it with regrets. Because if anyone ever tells you that forgiving someone means giving them a second chance, they've clearly never been used like a disposable credit card by someone who smiled while draining you dry, then screamed betrayal the second the ATM stopped spitting out cash. And no, I didn't feel guilty when she looked at me through that bulletproof glass mouthing, "Save me," because I'd already done that too many times and I was done being her insurance plan, her emotional backup, her convenient excuse for never growing up. So I left that courthouse with my head high and my chest clear, the sky bluer than it had been in years, and even though the gears of the original story had kept grinding and dragging her to that inevitable downfall, I had no intention of getting pulled in again. But fate's funny like that. It doesn't care if you're tired or healed or moving on, because it always has a new chapter ready to throw at you, and sometimes it's not even a new one, just an old mess you never realized was still running in the background like a cursed tab you forgot to close, and mine came in the form of high school gossip, because apparently, just because Emily was gone didn't mean her shadow was, and now I was the new campus mystery, the guy who'd gotten her arrested and somehow earned a full ride to Tsinghua while playing cold and unreachable like I was starring in my own teen Netflix drama, which honestly, wasn't far off, because I started getting weird attention girls who used to ignore me suddenly smiling too long in the hallways, classmates asking vague questions like, "So, you really cut her off?" as if I'd committed some noble crime, and all the while, I kept my mouth shut, let them spin their theories, because why ruin the fun when the truth was so much messier than they could imagine. And just when things started to feel normal, when I thought the Emily Carter arc was officially closed, I heard her name again in the most ridiculous place, the teacher's office, because apparently, even from jail, Emily was making headlines. And this time it wasn't about her trial, it was about a Scholarship that got cancelled because the school discovered she'd been misrepresenting her financial records for years, all thanks to the anonymous tip I may or may not have sent under a burner email, not out of pettiness, okay maybe a little, but mostly because the school needed to stop pretending she was some kind of tragic hero when all she ever did was play everyone for fools, and while that domino fell, I was busy packing for college, because Beijing wasn't going to wait for me, and I wasn't about to let the ghost of my past ride shotgun on my new start. Except fate, again, wasn't done being dramatic, because 1 week before my flight, I was hanging out at a rooftop party small group, nothing fancy, just some senior year nostalgia and a lot of bad soda and who shows up uninvited but Ryan Kim, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 2 months, and for a guy who used to walk like he owned every hallway, he now looked like a clearance item someone forgot to tag, and maybe I should have ignored him, but when he approached me, holding that same fake casual tone like we were old bros, I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, and he said, "Hey man, heard you're heading out soon," like I hadn't literally watched his world implode at the school bulletin board weeks ago, so I nodded and said, "Yeah, starting a new chapter," hoping he'd take the hint and walk away, but of course he didn't, because guys like him never leave clean. They always want one last word, one last jab, one last chance to rewrite history, and he leaned closer and said, "Look, I just want you to know what happened with Emily, it wasn't all on her, alright," and I laughed, because wow, the audacity of trying to share the blame after setting the whole thing on fire, but I let him talk, mostly out of curiosity, and he rambled about how they were both just kids, how things got out of hand, how Emily lost control and made bad decisions because she didn't know how to cope, and yeah, that part was probably true, but the difference was that I'd been her crutch, not her enemy, and she treated me like a backup plan she could return to whenever her real life failed, so I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You both made choices. Own them," and he had the nerve to look offended, like I wasn't being fair to him, and I knew then that neither of them had ever truly taken responsibility. They just reshuffled the blame like a deck of bad cards, hoping someone else would pick it up, and I wasn't going to play anymore, so I left the party early, walked the streets for a while under the city lights, thinking about how weird it was that for so long I'd defined myself through someone else's story, tried to earn love that was never real, clung to hope that belonged to another version of me, and now, standing on the edge of something new, I wasn't sure what kind of person I wanted to be, but I knew exactly who I didn't want to be: a guy who stayed stuck in chapter 1 when life had already turned the page, and maybe that's why I felt strangely calm when I boarded the flight to Beijing a week later, earbuds in, window seat secured, no dramatic goodbye. No last-minute text from a girl I used to chase, just the quiet thrum of the plane engine and a boarding pass with my name on it, and somewhere over the clouds, as I watched the city shrink below me, I realized something important: you don't need to be the main character in someone else's story when you finally started writing your own. College was supposed to be a clean slate, and for the most part, it was the new city, new campus, new roommates who didn't know me as that guy who got his ex sent to prison, and no Emily Carter shadow lurking in every hallway. But the thing about escaping the past is that it has a funny way of leaking back through the cracks you forgot to seal, and I didn't realize how deep her fingerprints still went until I found myself sitting across from a girl in a coffee shop near campus who casually mentioned she went to No. 3 High 2 and said, "Weren't you the guy with the Emily drama?" like it was an icebreaker. Like that entire traumatic arc of my life was now reduced to a trending hashtag I'd never asked for, and I smiled politely and said, "Yeah, that was me," because I didn't feel like explaining how I used to be the bootlicker who mistook pity for love, or how I almost gave up everything: my future, my dignity, my sense of self just to play the backup plan in someone else's redemption fantasy. And while she kept talking about high school tea, I sipped my overpriced latte and wondered why it still bothered me even now, months later, in a city where Emily had no influence and I was just James, the freshman with decent grades and zero emotional baggage on paper. But then the real kicker came 2 weeks into the semester, when I got a random email from an unknown address, no subject line, just a single sentence in the body: "She's out." And I didn't need context, I knew exactly who it meant, and my stomach sank like I'd just seen the ghost of a dead chapter rise from the plot, because I knew Emily Carter had been released early, probably for good behavior, or some plea deal negotiated by whoever still believed she deserved another chance, and the worst part was that for a split second, I felt a twinge of panic, like maybe she'd show up on campus with a suitcase and a fake smile, saying she wanted to start over again. Like all the jail time had reset her personality, but nothing came, no call, no text, no surprise reunion, just silence, and I tried to tell myself that it didn't matter anymore, that I'd moved on, but the truth is, when someone's messed with your head for that long, it's not about love, it's about the bruises they left behind, the ones that don't show up in mirror selfies but still ache when the weather changes, and mine flared up hard the night I ran into Sophia Lee again at a startup pitch event, looking 10 times more composed than any of us, dressed like a Vogue cover model with that bored heiress energy she wore so naturally, and when she saw me, she smiled like we hadn't buried a mountain of drama together, like we were just old friends catching up, and we talked for a while, mostly about school and internships and tech trends, until she leaned in and said, "So, have you heard from her?" And I didn't need to ask who her was, but I just shook my head and said, "No." And I planned to keep it that way, which made Sophia arch an eyebrow like she didn't buy it, and maybe I didn't either, because that night, after everything, I still found myself scrolling through old messages I hadn't deleted, rereading her letters, the fake ones she thought she was sending to Brother Lee, the ones I'd kept even after ripping up the rest, and for a brief moment, I wondered what would have happened if I'd told her the truth earlier, if I hadn't tried to be the quiet savior in the background, if I'd forced her to see me for who I really was instead of the fantasy she clung to. But then I remembered how she looked at me the last time we spoke, like I was the villain in a story she never bothered to understand, and that snapped me right out of it, because the truth is, Emily didn't want redemption, she wanted control, and the moment she couldn't shape me into the version that fed her ego, she turned on me like I'd betrayed her, and even now, I knew if she walked back into my life, it wouldn't be for closure, it would be because she wanted something. Because users never come back just to say sorry, they come back to rerun the program, hoping you're still dumb enough to fall for it again, and I wasn't, not anymore, but the world doesn't work in clean narrative arcs, and I found that out real fast when our university hosted a cross-college seminar on media ethics, and who showed up as a guest panelist but none other than Dr. Thomas Reed, the same man whose hands were sliced up by Emily during her mental breakdown, except now he was in a suit, wearing gloves that hid the scars and speaking calmly about digital misinformation, like he hadn't almost lost his life for trying to help someone who thought the world owed her a miracle, and I don't know if he saw me, but I couldn't look away, because seeing him standing there, composed and intelligent and still moving forward after everything, reminded me that maybe we weren't just survivors of the same storm, we were both people who tried to help the wrong girl and paid the price, and when the Q&A opened, I raised my hand, not to ask anything deep, just to say, "Thank you, for not giving up," and he looked at me for a long second, then nodded once, slowly, like he knew exactly what I meant, and in that moment, I felt something click, like maybe I didn't need revenge or recognition or a dramatic closure scene, maybe all I needed was to keep walking, to keep choosing myself, one day at a time, and when I left that room, I didn't feel heavy anymore, I felt solid, like I finally belonged in the story I was living, not just reacting to someone else's script, and that feeling only grew stronger when I got a call from my dad later that week, telling me the Walker family business had just inked a partnership with one of the top firms in Asia, and that I should start thinking about post-grad positions, maybe even overseas expansion, and for the first time, I actually felt excited about the future, not scared, not trapped, just ready, because life wasn't perfect, but it was mine again, and even if the ghost of Emily Carter still lingered in some corner of my memory, she didn't get to direct the next act, and as I stood on the rooftop of my dorm that night, looking out over the glowing city lights of Beijing, I whispered to no one in particular, "This is what freedom feels like," and it wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was real, and that was enough. For now. The thing about freedom is that it doesn't always feel like a celebration. Sometimes it's just the absence of noise, the absence of chaos, of expectations you never agreed to but kept trying to meet anyway, and in the weeks that followed Dr. Reed's seminar, I started to finally feel what peace actually meant, not just the kind you post about online with a sunrise filter and some fake deep quote, but the real kind, the kind where you wake up and your chest doesn't feel heavy, where you don't flinch when your phone lights up, where your future doesn't feel like some twisted extension of someone else's tragedy, and yeah. There were still moments when Emily Carter's name popped upon gossip threads, in late-night dorm convos, sometimes even in business articles about rebuilding after scandal, but none of them hit the same, because she didn't hit the same, not anymore. She wasn't the protagonist of my life, not the moon I orbited or the storm I had to weather. She was just a girl who made a mess and paid the price, and I was just the guy who finally walked away, and yet, fate had to get one last word in. Because just when I thought the universe had finally run out of ways to test me, I got a call from Mr. Johnson, the driver who used to practically worship the ground Emily walked on, and he said, "Young master, there's someone asking about you, and I immediately said no, hung up, and blocked the number, because I didn't need to hear it, didn't need to know what her angle was now, didn't need to reopen a door that should have been bricked shut 3 chapters ago, but curiosity is a stubborn thing, and unfortunately, I'm human. So a week later, I found myself back in my hometown, walking the same path I used to take from school to home, past the coffee shop she once sat in, past the hospital where her mother was admitted, past the cracked sidewalks that had carried all the pieces of our history, and I ended up in the place I knew I'd find her if she was anywhere by the lake behind our old campus, the one where she used to sit and sketch when she didn't think anyone was watching, and yeah, she was there, looking thinner, quieter, like life had worn her down but hadn't entirely broken her. And when she saw me, she didn't smile, didn't cry, didn't perform, she just stood up and said, "Hey," like we were 2 old classmates who hadn't spoken since graduation, and I kept my hands in my pockets and said, "So you're out," and she nodded, 6 months early, behavior credit, and there was silence for a while, the kind that's not uncomfortable but not warm either, just neutral, and finally she said, "I wanted to see you because I never got to say thank you," and I almost laughed, not out of bitterness, just disbelief, because thank you was about 8 years late and 3 identities short of what I actually needed, but I didn't say anything, just raised an eyebrow, and she continued, "You were the only person who actually saw me back then, and I didn't know how to handle that, so I pushed you away, hurt you, used you, and I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed to say it, and I waited for the pitch, the follow-up ask, the guilt trip, but it never came, just silence again, and..." She looked out at the water and said, "I don't think I ever loved anyone the way I wanted to be loved, and I'm sorry it took ruining everything to realize that," and maybe she meant it, maybe she didn't, but it didn't matter, because I didn't need closure from her. I already had it, the moment I stopped seeing her as some romantic ideal and started seeing her as just another flawed person who made bad choices, and I said, "I'm not angry anymore," and that was the truth, because you can't heal while holding on to resentment like a trophy, and she smiled, sad but real, and said, "That's more than I deserve," and I shrugged, "Maybe, but it's what I've got," and we stood there for a minute longer before I said, "Take care of yourself," and turned to leave, not because I needed a dramatic exit, but because I didn't want the moment to stretch into something it wasn't, and as I walked away, I heard her say softly, "James, thank you for writing your own story," and I didn't turn back, just raised my hand in a wave, because that was the end of it, not a cliffhanger, not a plot twist, just a quiet full stop, and when I got back to Beijing, I didn't tell anyone about it, didn't post about it, didn't turn it into some deep metaphor for growth, I just kept living, one day at a time, building something that belonged to me, and somewhere along the line, I stopped needing people to understand how much I'd been through, stopped needing to prove that I'd survived a narrative designed to crush me, because survival is loud in its own quiet way. It's waking up excited for the future, it's making new friends who don't know you as someone's ex or someone's tragedy, it's laughing without guilt and loving without fear and choosing your peace every single time. And now, years later, when people ask about high school or Emily or the infamous bootlicker arc, I just smile and say, "Yeah, I was that guy, but the difference is, I'm not anymore, and I never will be again."